The morning sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting a warm glow across the kitchen where we sat, sipping our coffee in silence. The air between us was thick, charged with an unspoken tension that had been building for weeks. It was Lisa who broke the silence, her voice cutting through the calm like a knife. "I'm taking a week off," she announced, her gaze fixed on the steam rising from her cup. "From work, from us, from everything." I nearly choked on my coffee. A week off? What does that even mean? My confusion was met with her cold indifference. "It means I'm going to Jamaica," she said, as if it were the most natural decision in the world. "With him." The casual mention of him sent a jolt through me. "Who's him?" I demanded, but deep down, I already knew. The signs had been there, hiding in plain sight. "My boyfriend," she replied, her tone devoid of any remorse. "I think it's only fair. You should find someone too for the week." The absurdity of her suggestion left me speechless. This wasn't just a departure, it was a full-blown escape. "And the money?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Our savings." She met my gaze, her eyes cold and calculating. "I've taken care of it. Transferred to my account, for the trip." I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the tile floor. "You can't do this, Lisa. You can't just dismantle our life together for a fling." But she was unfazed, her decision made. "I already have, Mark. And it's not just a fling. It's a break. From you, from us." As she walked away to pack, I felt a rage building within me, a fire that threatened to consume everything in its path. This was not the woman I married, not the partner I had vowed to stand by through thick and thin. She had become a stranger, one who was willing to betray everything we had built for a momentary escape. The sound of her suitcase zipping closed was like the final nail in the coffin of our marriage. I watched in silence as she dragged it behind her, her steps echoing through the house, each one a reminder of the chasm that had opened up between us. "Goodbye, Mark," she said without looking back. "Don't wait up." As the door closed behind her, I was left alone, surrounded by the shattered pieces of our life together. This was more than a departure. It was an abandonment, a declaration of war, and I knew, in that moment, that nothing would ever be the same again. The silence that followed Lisa's departure was deafening. The home we had built together, once filled with laughter and love, now stood as a monument to her betrayal. I was left to navigate the wreckage alone, my thoughts a turbulent sea of anger, confusion, and pain. It was during this time of solitude that the full extent of Lisa's deception began to unravel. The phone rang, shattering the silence. I answered, expecting perhaps a call from a friend or family member, someone to offer words of comfort in my time of need. Instead, I was greeted by the voice of a man, confident and smug. "Hey, is Lisa there? We need to finalize our plans for Jamaica." His words were like a punch to the gut, a cruel confirmation of Lisa's infidelity. "You must be the boyfriend," I managed to say, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. He laughed, a sound that sent shivers down my spine. "Yeah, that's me. She's told you about our trip then." The casualness of his tone, the audacity to call my home and speak of their plans, fueled my anger. "She mentioned it," I replied, my words laced with venom. "Enjoy it while it lasts. Jamaica won't be the paradise you're expecting." There was a pause on the line, a moment of hesitation. "Listen, man, I don't know what she's told you, but Lisa and I don't want to hear it," I cut him off, my patience wearing thin. "Just know that actions have consequences. She's not the only one with plans." The line went dead, leaving me once again in silence. As I hung up the phone, a plan began to take shape in my mind, a way to reclaim some semblance of control over the chaos Lisa had unleashed. I logged into our joint bank account, only to find it nearly emptied. Lisa had been thorough, transferring our savings into her personal account with surgical precision. The betrayal stung, but it also served as a catalyst, propelling me into action. I called my friend Alex, a man who had been through a similar ordeal. "She's taken everything," I told him, my voice a mixture of disbelief and resolve. Alex's response was calm, measured. "Mark, listen to me. You can't let her win. Not like this. You need to fight back, make her regret ever crossing you." His words resonated with me, a beacon of hope in the darkness. "I have a plan," I said, the gears in my mind turning, "but I'll need your help." Together, we plotted a course of action, a way to turn the tables on Lisa and her lover. It was a plan born of desperation and anger, but also one of necessity. Lisa had fired the first shot, but I was determined to have the last word. As I set the plan into motion, I couldn't help but feel a sense of empowerment. For the first time since Lisa's departure, I felt in control of my destiny. The battle lines had been drawn, and I was ready to fight back. The days following Lisa's departure and the revelation of her betrayal passed in a blur. My plan with Alex was set in motion, a meticulous scheme designed to expose Lisa and her lover's deceit, ensuring they faced the consequences of their actions. It was a plan that required patience, precision, and a bit of cunning, qualities I never knew I possessed until pushed to the brink. As I awaited the fallout from our carefully laid trap, the anticipation was almost unbearable. Then, one evening, as I sat alone in the silence of our once shared home, the phone rang. It was Lisa, her voice a mixture of confusion and rage. "Mark, what have you done?" she demanded, her words sharp as knives. "My accounts, they're frozen. And there's a lawyer contacting me about fraudulent transfers. This is your doing, isn't it?" Her accusation was met with a cold satisfaction. "You shouldn't have underestimated me, Lisa. You took everything from me, but I still have my dignity. And now you'll learn what it means to truly lose." Lisa's anger quickly turned to desperation. "Mark, please. You don't understand. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I made a mistake." "A mistake?" I echoed, incredulous. "You called destroying our marriage, our life together, a mistake?" There was a pause, a moment of silence that spoke volumes. "I thought I knew what I wanted," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I was wrong. I've lost everything now. Please, can we just talk about this?" The plea in her voice might have once moved me, stirred the love I had for her. But that man was gone, replaced by someone hardened by betrayal and loss. "It's too late for that, Lisa. You made your choice. Now live with it." The line went dead, and with it, any lingering connection between us. In the days that followed, Lisa's world unraveled as the consequences of her actions caught up with her. Her lover, faced with the threat of legal action and public exposure, abandoned her, leaving Lisa to face the aftermath alone. Alex and I watched from the sidelines as Lisa's carefully constructed facade crumbled. "You think she learned her lesson?" Alex asked one evening, as we discussed the fallout over a drink. I pondered the question, reflecting on the journey that had led me to this point. "Perhaps," I said, my gaze lost in the amber liquid in my glass. "But the lesson wasn't just for her. It was for me too. I learned that I'm stronger than I thought, that I can survive betrayal and come out the other side." Alex raised his glass in a silent toast, a nod to the hard-won wisdom that had come from my pain. "To new beginnings," he said, his voice steady and sure. "To new beginnings," I echoed, a sense of closure washing over me. The battle was over, and though the scars would remain, I was ready to move forward, to rebuild my life on my own terms. Lisa's betrayal had shattered my world, but in its aftermath, I discovered a resilience I never knew I had. The road ahead would be uncertain, fraught with challenges and moments of doubt, but I was ready to face it, to embrace the unknown with a strength forged in the fires of heartbreak and revenge. The days following the collapse of Lisa's world were filled with a quiet intensity. My victory, though bittersweet, had brought a semblance of peace. Yet within that calm, a storm was brewing, a retaliation that I hadn't anticipated. Lisa #### Chapter 4. The Retaliation. The days following the implementation of our plan against Lisa and her lover were filled with a tense anticipation. While part of me felt vindicated, another part braced for the inevitable backlash. It wasn't long before it came, but not in the manner I had. It seemed wasn't ready to concede defeat. The first sign of her counterattack came unexpectedly. I was at work, trying to immerse myself in the mundane tasks of my job, when my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. The words on the screen sent a chill down my spine, expected. One evening, as the shadows grew long and the world outside my window settled into a quiet dusk, a knock at my door shattered the calm. I opened it to find Lisa, her eyes red and swollen from crying, her posture defeated. She looked like a shadow of the woman who had left me, her confidence. "You think you've won, but this isn't over." I stared at the message, a sense of foreboding washing over me. It was clear Lisa wasn't going to go down without a fight. I called Alex immediately, seeking his counsel. "Mark, you need to be careful," Alex warned, his voice replaced by desperation. "Mark, I don't know where else to go, she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. The sight of her, so vulnerable and broken, stirred something in me, a reminder of the love we once shared. But the pain of her betrayal was too fresh, the tense. She's cornered and desperate. There's no telling what she might do. I know, I replied, my mind racing. But I'm not going to let her intimidate me. I've come too far to back down now. That night, as I lay in bed, the weight of the situation wound too deep. Lisa, I began, my voice firm, you made your choice. Why come here now? She took a deep breath, steadying herself before she spoke. I know I have no right to ask anything of you. But I'm scared, Mark. I've lost everything pressed down on me. The battle I thought I had won was far from over. Lisa's message was a declaration of war, one that I had to prepare for. The next blow came swiftly. I awoke to find my car vandalized, the words traitor and liar scratched into the paint, and now I'm being threatened. The revelation took me by surprise. Threatened? By whom? By him, she said, a shiver running through her frame. The man I left you for. He's not who I thought he was, Mark. He's dangerous, and now. It was a physical manifestation of Lisa's wrath, a tangible sign that she was willing to cross lines I hadn't anticipated. Fury and frustration boiled within me as I reported the incident to the police, knowing all the while that proving Lisa was behind it would be difficult, if not impossible. My sense of security that I've left him, he's promised to make me pay. A part of me wanted to close the door in her face, to let her deal with the consequences of her choices on her own. But another part, the part that had loved her, couldn't ignore the fear in her eyes. Common was shattered. The war had followed me into my sanctuary. The turning point came one evening when Lisa confronted me outside my office. Her appearance was disheveled, a stark contrast to the composed woman I once knew. Mark, you've destroyed my life, she hissed, her eyes burning with anger. Did? I said, stepping aside, we need to talk. As Lisa recounted her story, the pieces began to fall into place. Her lover, it seemed, was involved in shady dealings, something she had been blissfully unaware of until it was too late. And now, with her usefulness to him exhausted, she found herself a target of his wrath. I don't know what to do, Mark. I'm so sorry for everything, she sobbed, her body racked with tears. The sight of her, so broken, ignited a protective instinct I thought had been extinguished. Listen, Lisa, what you did to me, you really think I'd just roll over and accept it? I faced her, my resolve steeling. You brought this on yourself, Lisa. You made your choices, and now you're facing the consequences. Her laughter was bitter, devoid of any real humor. Consequences? You think you've seen the last of them. I'll make sure you regret ever crossing me. It was then that I realized the depth of Lisa's desperation. She was a wounded animal, lashing out in her pain and anger. But I also recognized the need to end this cycle of retaliation before it consumed us both. Lisa, listen to it's unforgivable. But I can't just turn my back on you. Not when you're in danger. Her eyes met mine, a glimmer of hope amidst the despair. You help me? After everything? I nodded, a plan already forming in my mind. Yes, but we do this, I said, my voice calm but firm. This has to stop. We're destroying each other over a past that can't be changed. It's time to move on, to let go of this hatred. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the woman I once loved, a glimpse of vulnerability my way. We're going to expose him, bring his crimes to light. It's time he faced his own consequences. With Lisa's insider knowledge and the evidence we began to gather, the pieces of the puzzle started to come together. It was a dangerous game we were playing, but with each passing day, our resolve in her eyes, but it was quickly masked by her anger. It's too late for that, she spat, turning on her heel and disappearing into the night. As I watched her go, a sense of sadness washed over me. Lisa and I had become casualties of our own vengeance, trapped in a cycle of pain and strengthened. We were no longer just ex-spouses caught in the aftermath of a failed marriage. We were allies in a fight against a common enemy. The day of reckoning came sooner than we expected. With the help of Alex and a few well-placed contacts, we were able to deliver the evidence of her lover's crimes to the authorities. The raid that followed was swift, his empire of deceit crumbling as quickly as it had been built. As we watched from a safe distance, Lisa turned to me, tears of relief and gratitude in her eyes. Thank you, Mark. You saved me, despite everything. I looked at her retribution. The path forward was uncertain, But I knew that breaking free from this cycle was the only way to truly move on. The war between us had taken its toll, leaving scars that would take time to heal. But in the aftermath, I found a resolve to rebuild, to forge a future defined not by the past, but by the possibilities that lay ahead. The road to recovery would be long and fraught with challenges, but I was ready to face them, armed with the lessons learned from the retaliation and the resilience to overcome. Seeing not the woman who had betrayed me, but a fellow victim of a cruel gang. We saved each other, Lisa, but this is where our paths diverge. I hope you find the peace you're looking for. And with that, we went our separate ways, the chapter of our lives marked by betrayal and revenge coming to a close. The road ahead was uncertain for both of us, but we faced it with a newfound strength, ready to rebuild from the ashes of our past. The dust had barely settled on the chaos of the past weeks when the realization hit me like a freight train. The journey through betrayal, vengeance, and eventual justice had left its mark, but it also sparked something within me, an awakening. It was as if I had been asleep for years, blindly navigating through life without truly living. I found myself at the old bridge overlooking the river, a place where Lisa and I used to come to dream about our future. The irony wasn't lost on me. Standing there alone, the cool breeze whispered promises of new beginnings. It was there that Alex found me, his presence a silent support. Quite the view, huh? Alex's voice broke the silence, his gaze following mine over the flowing water. It always was, I replied, the weight of memories heavy in my heart. It's funny how places remain unchanged, even when everything else has. Alex nodded, understanding the unspoken sentiment. You've been through hell, Mark, but you've come out the other side. Not many can say that. I let out a sigh, the reality of his words sinking in. I guess I have, but at what cost? Everything feels so different now. That's because you're different, Alex said, clapping a hand on my shoulder. You've grown. You're not the same man who stood on this bridge all those months ago. He was right. The man who loved Lisa, who had his world turned upside down, had evolved. I have faced my darkest fears, fought battles I never knew I had the strength for, and emerged not unscathed, but stronger. It's time, Mark, Alex continued, his voice earnest. Time to let go of the past and start living for the future. I looked at him, a mix of gratitude and resolve in my eyes. I know, and I'm ready. It's just starting over. It's daunting. Sure, it is, Alex agreed, but you're not alone. You've got friends, a whole life ahead of you. And who knows, maybe there's someone out there waiting to share it with you. His words sparked a flicker of hope, a possibility I hadn't allowed myself to consider. Lisa had been my world, and when that world crumbled, I thought I had lost everything. But maybe, just maybe, there was more to life than clinging to the remnants of a broken past. You really think so? I asked, the idea taking root. I know so, Alex said with a confident smile. But first, you've got to open yourself up to it. Take a chance. Taking a deep breath, I looked out over the river once more, its currents a metaphor for the journey of my life. There had been turbulence, yes, but there was also the promise of calm waters ahead. You're right, I said, a sense of determination rising within me. It's time for a new chapter, a new beginning. Alex nodded, pleased. That's the spirit. Now come on, let's get out of here. There's a whole world waiting for you. As we walked away from the bridge, I felt the weight of the past begin to lift. The path forward was uncharted, filled with unknowns, but I was no longer afraid. I was ready to face whatever came my way, to embrace the awakening that had taken hold of me. The journey through darkness had led me to the light, and for the first time in a long time, I was truly excited about what the future held. The awakening within me was not just a new beginning, it was a rebirth, a chance to live life on my own terms, to find happiness in the unexpected. And as I stepped into the unknown, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, I would face them with the strength and resilience forged in the fires of my past. The awakening was not just an end to the pain. It was the start of something beautiful, a life filled with possibilities, hope, and maybe, just maybe, a chance at love once again. The newfound resolve and determination that had filled me at the bridge with Alex were soon put to the test. The fallout from the entire ordeal with Lisa and her dangerous ex-lover began to manifest in ways I hadn't anticipated. Friends who had taken sides during the chaos started to show their true colors, and the professional reputation I had worked so hard to build was now under scrutiny due to the scandal that had unfolded so publicly. I found myself sitting in a dimly lit cafe across from Sarah, a colleague and friend who had been noticeably distant since everything had come to light. The air between us was thick with unspoken words, a tension that neither of us seemed ready to address. "Mark," Sarah finally broke the silence, her voice hesitant. I don't know what to say about everything that's happened." I stirred my coffee, avoiding her gaze. "You don't have to say anything, Sarah. I know it's been a lot." She sighed, a look of conflict passing over her face. "It's not just that. It's how everything has changed. At work, people are talking, and I don't know how to defend you without." "Without what?" "Taking sides?" I interjected, a hint of bitterness creeping into my voice. "Yes, exactly. I hate what's happening, but I also can't afford to get dragged down." "I'm sorry, Mark. I truly am," Sarah admitted, her eyes filled with regret. I let out a slow breath, the reality of her words settling in. "I get it, Sarah. You have to look out for yourself. I don't hold it against you." The conversation shifted to safer topics, but the damage was done. The fallout was affecting not just my personal life, but also my professional relationships. The isolation I felt was palpable, a stark reminder of the price of the war I had waged. Later that week, I found myself at a local bar, trying to drown out the whispers and stares with a glass of whiskey. That's when Mike, an old friend who had been conspicuously absent during my darkest days, slid onto the stool beside me. "Mark, man, I've been meaning to reach out," Mike started, his tone awkward and forced. I took a sip of my drink, my patience wearing thin. "But you didn't, Mike. When it all went down, you were nowhere to be found." He winced, the accusation hitting its mark. "I know, and I'm sorry. It's just, everything got so messy, and I didn't want to get involved." "Involved?" I echoed, a cynical laugh escaping me. "You mean you didn't want to pick a side?" Mike looked down, unable to meet my gaze. "It wasn't like that, Mark. I didn't know what to believe." The conversation that followed was a mix of apologies and excuses, but the realization hit me hard. The fallout had revealed the fragility of relationships I had once considered unbreakable. Trust and loyalty, it seemed, were commodities in short supply. As I walked home that night, the cool air sobering my thoughts, I couldn't help but feel a sense of loss. The fallout had taken more from me than just my marriage and peace of mind. It had stripped away the veneer of friendships and exposed the harsh truth of my solitude. But amidst the wreckage of my social circle, a spark of clarity emerged. I no longer had the energy for fair weather friends or the desire to rebuild bridges with those who had chosen to abandon me in my hour of need. It was time to focus on those who had stood by me like Alex, and to forge new connections with people who valued loyalty as much as I did. The fallout, for all its devastation, had also been a crucible, burning away the chaff and leaving behind the essence of what truly mattered. It was a painful lesson, but one that I was slowly coming to appreciate. The path forward would be lonelier, perhaps, but it would be walked with steps unburdened by the weight of false expectations and superficial ties. As I gazed up at the starlit sky, the sense of peace settled over me. The fallout had been brutal, but it had also been a catalyst for growth. I was ready to embrace the solitude, to rebuild from the ground up, and to find strength in the authenticity of the relationships that had weathered the storm. The journey ahead was uncertain, but I was no longer afraid to walk it alone. The days following the realization that my circle had drastically changed were filled with introspection. I had come to terms with the fallout, embracing the solitude as a means to rebuild myself from the ashes of my former life. It was during this period of self-discovery that I stumbled upon the endgame of my journey through betrayal and heartbreak. I was at the local library, a place I had found solace in the quiet and the endless possibilities within the pages of books, when I overheard a conversation that would redefine my path. "I just don't get it. Why would someone go through all that pain and not seek revenge?" a young man said to his friend, his voice carrying a mix of confusion and awe. His friend, leaning against the bookshelf, shrugged. "Because sometimes, the best revenge is moving on. Living well is how you show them they didn't destroy you." The words struck a chord within me, resonating with the turmoil and growth I had experienced. It was then that I realized my endgame wasn't about revenge or proving anything to Lisa or those who had wronged me. It was about moving on, living well, and finding peace within myself. Armed with this newfound understanding, I decided it was time to confront Lisa one last time, not out of spite, but to seek closure for both of us. I found her at the park where we first met, the autumn leaves painting a mosaic of memories on the ground. "Lisa," I called out, my voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions. She turned, surprise etched on her face. "Mark, what are you doing here?" "I came to talk, to say what I never got the chance to," I replied, closing the distance between us. She hesitated, then nodded, leading us to a nearby bench. "I'm listening." "Lisa, what happened between us, the pain, the betrayal, it nearly broke me. But I've come to realize that holding on to anger and resentment is a poison, and I refuse to let it consume me any longer," I began, the words flowing more freely than I expected. She looked down, guilt shadowing her features. "Mark, I'm so sorry for everything. I never wanted to hurt you." "I know," I said, the truth of her words ringing clear. "And I forgive you, Lisa. Not for your sake, but for mine. I need to let go, to move on." Tears brimmed in her eyes as she met my gaze. "I don't know what to say. Thank you, Mark. I didn't expect. I hope you find happiness." "I will," I assured her, a sense of liberation filling me. "And I hope the same for you, Lisa. Take care of yourself." As I walked away from Lisa for the last time, I felt the final chains of the past fall away. The end game wasn't about winning or losing. It was about finding peace and starting anew. In the weeks that followed, I focused on rebuilding my life, investing time in hobbies I had neglected, and strengthening the bonds with the few friends who had remained by my side. Each day brought new challenges, but also new joys and opportunities for growth. One evening, as I sat with Alex at our favorite bar, he raised his glass in a toast. "To new beginnings, Mark. You've come a long way." I smiled, clinking my glass against his. "To new beginnings. It's been a hell of a journey, but I'm ready for whatever comes next." The end game had taught me that life is a series of chapters, each with its own struggles and triumphs. And as one chapter closed, another awaited, filled with the promise of new adventures, new lessons, and the chance to live well, beyond the shadows of the past.